welcome everybody today to the first ever Federated EGA webinar. This one, we have focused on technical and operational questions. So this is a new thing that we haven't done before, but we thought could be useful as now the first 5 inaugural nodes have signed and are officially, we officially have a Federated EGA. It's a nice time to share experiences and try and help other nodes or institutes that are interested in getting on board as well. So everybody is well aware, everybody in this room is aware of Federated EGA. That was one of the requisites of coming today. Obviously, the audience is quite specific, or we expect that. So this is a bit the agenda planned for today. We'll just do a brief welcome and introductions of the panelists. And then we ask that participants submit any questions that they might have. So we have grouped them somewhat based on technical or operational focus. So we'll try to go through the technical ones in the first 30 minutes, then we'll have a small break. And then we'll go to the operational ones. And then we'll open it up for general Q&A. And we'll have some closing remarks. So, I mean, this is just a tentative schedule. We can see maybe it goes very fast or it goes slower. I mean, we want this to be useful, so I will try to stick to the schedule somewhat, but if there's good discussion, I don't want to stop it either. So the idea is this to be really is not a formal thing here. So we want to just, get questions out and get useful answers. So I am Amy Kerwin, and I'm a scientific project manager at the EGA in the CRG site. So I'll be moderating the session today. And David Lloyd, who's just going to come back in a minute, he's hosting this through Elixir. Elixir's hosting this event for us. Okay, so let me just briefly say, why are we here? Well, we just sort of mentioned all of these things. We want to help get the next wave of Federated EGA nodes on board, using all of the lessons learned and things that we have gained, experiences we've gained through the years. And so the plan will be, we'll do introductions, and then I won't share screen the whole time so that we can facilitate the discussion. I'll share the link of this presentation in a moment in the chat so that everyone can see it on their own computers and have the questions there in front of them. I'll read each question before the discussion, and then we'll have the answers, and we'll try to go through and make sure every panelist gets a chance to talk if they want to. I think that's about it. So maybe now I can just open it up for introductions. I think, perhaps I'll, I want to stop sharing this moment. Because, I thought I would do it a bit. I would like that you guys could introduce yourselves. So I sort of at random, I think I'll just start with the central EGA ones. And Sylvia, maybe you could just briefly introduce yourself and your role at central EGA.
Hello, my name is Silvia Baena, and I'm part of the help desk at central EGA.
Great, thank you. Aina, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yep. Hello, everybody. So my name is Aina Janem, and I am also part of the help desk team. Actually, I'm the help desk lead at EGA CRG, known as Central EGA, but the parent in Spain.
Thank you. And Fred, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm also at CRG, and I am the technical guy. So I'm part of the developer team, and I lead the team. Technical person.
Perfect, exactly, yeah. Okay, and then in no particular order, we have representatives from the inaugural nodes. And so first I have Albert from Spain. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Hi, my name is Albert, and I'm from BSc, from Federated EGA Spain node. And I'm a research engineer, and I'm a technical guy like Fred. but I do some operational stuff too, and some management.
Excellent, thank you. And then we have Marcus from Sweden. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hello, my name is Marcus Englund. I'm a data steward at National Bioinformatics Infrastructure Sweden, NBIS, which is also the Swedish node of Elixir. And I'm at the help desk of the Swedish FEGA node.
Great, thank you. Next we have Kjell from Norway.
Hi everyone, Kjell Pettersen. I'm the technical coordinator of Elixir Norway that hosts FEGA Norway. By training, I'm a researcher, turned a bit more technical over the years, so involved in the FEGA Norway work from anything legal to more operational to more development.
Great, thank you. Next from Germany, we have Kirsten with us.
Yeah, good afternoon. So I'm Kirsten. I'm a software developer from the German EGA node and or Federated EGA node. And yeah, I mean, today it's also the first day I can use my new title, which is technical lead for the GHGA. So for the German Human Genome Phenome Archive. And yeah, I'm representing here this project, which is in turn in Germany highly federated. And yeah, we will hear about that later, maybe a bit more.
Yes, I'm sure we will. Thank you. And then from Finland, we have together Ilkka and Jaakko.
All right, so good afternoon to everyone. My name is Ilkka Lappalainen. I lead the sensitive data services in Finland, which includes our federated EGA node.
And I'm Jaakko Leinonen, and I'm the service owner for Federated EGA.
Great, thank you very much. And last but not least, we also have from Poland, Blażej.
Hi, hello. My name is Blażej. I'm from Poland, University of Łódź, and I'm leading the project that's aimed to set up the Polish Federated EGA node.
Excellent, thank you. So that completes the introduction of the panelists. Let me now do, as I said, and I will share in the chat the presentation that we're using for today, which has all the questions compiled. So the panelists have seen the questions in advance and have had a chance to think about them. And so maybe I will just very briefly share again here the screen to look at the first question. I have all these Zoom icons in my way. So I'll just read it out quickly. What technical architecture have you set up for your Federated EGA node and why? And then there are some examples of more details. What type of storage? Oh, well, actually, sorry. First, I thought maybe since there might be a little bit of time. Oops, I'm sorry. I can't there. I just thought we could have a look. Like, so we have 51 participants, so that's really great. And I know that we have people connecting from different ends of the world, so I'm not really sure what time of day it is for everybody who's in this call right now. But I just sort of wanted to point it out that I think we have a really good amount of attendance and attendees and a nice potential next wave of nodes. So I don't know if anybody, I wanted to give a chance for anybody in the audience to speak up or say anything before we got into the details, but don't feel pressure if you don't want to. I just thought I would put it out because I mean, you guys have submitted the questions yourself. Maybe some of you know each other. Again, the idea is we'd like to have this very informal. Sorry, I forgot that I wanted to give that chance. Okay. So again, thanks everyone for coming. I hope it's not too late or too early. So maybe I won't share the screen again. I think you guys have your, you can have it open for yourselves on your computers. So I go back to the first question about the technical architecture have you set up for your Federated EGA node and why? So types of storage disk, to archive primary and secondary copies, geographical separation of 2 copies of archived data, can it be in different buildings or the distance needs to be greater, and general recommendations you have for choosing the technical architecture for a node. Okay, so maybe to start, is there a volunteer of anyone that'd like to tackle this question first? Or if not, I can start to point to people. Okay, go ahead, Shah. Thanks.
Yeah, I can start. So in Norway, we have been collaborating with a unit at University of Oslo and Elixir Norway, between University of Oslo and Elixir Norway for many years to establish a secure environment for sensitive data that normally we're only supporting researchers to do their own hands-on analysis inside this environment. So there were a functionality to have separate projects for different research groups and sharing data inside there together with storage and compute and other things. So for us, it was natural to build on this infrastructure to then build a service inside this environment or on top of that environment. That infrastructure is operating with complete internet separation. So a researcher inside this project have no access to the internet. So of course, when we are going to establish a federated service on top of that, we would need some means of communication, get data in and out, and also to get messages in and out. But for us, that was a starting point that we had worked together with this unit for a long time before we even wanted to establish Federated EGA, and that's why we started and selected that one. What type of storage? Well, we are using a standard POSIX file system inside here, operated by this infrastructure. When it comes to 2 copies of the data, we are currently using the TSD infrastructure's way of having a primary copy and a secondary copy, which is within the same city. We are working to improve this in a later milestone where we will have separation in 2 different cities in Norway. And my general recommendation is that, well, our experience is that not starting from scratch, but starting from an already existing infrastructure that is focused on security and it deals with sensitive data already, that made a good basis for us to build this service on top of.
Great, thank you. Do one of the other nodes want to say something about their experience? Okay, Blažej from Poland, go ahead.
Yes, hi, hello. Maybe I will talk about our experience because they are interesting. We was supposed in the first project plan, we were supposed to use the governmental cloud that it was the, let's say, parallel project done by Polish government. Unfortunately, they have some obstacles in this in their project, and therefore we cannot use the architecture that is developed by them. We provide some development to integrate with this architecture and use the resources. And unfortunately, to these obstacles, we have to change because we have some deadlines in our project, and so we have to switch to a different provider. Therefore, we currently configuring our environment basing on S3 API, and that is provided by another university in Poland. And part of our infrastructure will be, we will be using part of our existing infrastructure. So we, by this mean, we will have this geographical redundancy. And we will also use in our environment, we will also configure S3 environment to be, let's say, to use the same technology for the archive and for the backup.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, Kristen, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I will also start maybe with why we are setting up what we're setting up, because that is very interesting and very, very different to the story of the Norway node, and I assume also most of the other Nordic nodes. So we are coming from this angle where we pretty much don't have this this community platform, community infrastructure for bioinformatics in Germany. That means we have nothing to build on top to just like add this local EGA stack on top, but we really need to pretty much start from scratch and set up this national community platform for data storage, for exchanging data, for also analyzing data, and do all of that from scratch. So that is one specialty, I think, that we have in Germany. And another specialty is our interaction model with central EGA. And that is motivated by the special legal requirements, legal and operational requirements that we have in Germany due to German law, due to German interpretation of GDPR and other regulations. Because of them, we cannot just act as a pure data store. But we have to go beyond that. If we want or not, we have to go beyond that and keep full control of the metadata and also this operational procedures of the process of granting access, for instance. And that is why our interaction model currently with central EGA is limited to only exchanging anonymous metadata. We have to store more metadata, pseudonymized metadata, sensitive metadata, patient metadata. We have to store that locally in Germany and also keep reflect this controlled access process in Germany. Yeah, and of course that is also reflected on the technological choices we have made and we are acting on right now. So what we are building up is pretty much again from scratch a platform for service deployment based on Kubernetes. That is not in Kubernetes itself. We are not deploying on public cloud providers like AWS or something. Cannot use that. We have to go on rely on premise solutions. Yeah, so hosted in our partner institutions. We are using also S3 compatible object storages. So that is I think a commonality. And yeah, for secret storage, we also are setting up our solutions based on HashiCorp Vault. And we unfortunately also have to, because of the special requirements, legal and operational requirements, are forced to develop our own set of microservices that handle these files, handle metadata, and also handle access requirements. And yeah, I mean that is pretty much our story and why it's maybe a bit more elaborate than what other nodes with performant existing infrastructure have to do. Maybe going through these other questions around storage. Again, I mentioned we are using S3 compatible object storage. Either we're using IBM COS or Ceph, so not from from public cloud providers, but self-hosted. We are also backing that up by tape-based cold storage. Geographical separation, that is something that we are wishing for, that we can replicate that across cities. So one thing that maybe I forgot to mention is we are highly federated within Germany because of also the federal structure of Germany, so having different states, having different legal requirements there even. And we hope that we can, with this federated structure of GHG, can reflect or can also replicate data. But for the time being, we mostly are trying to get our first node online that is located in Heidelberg, and there our S3 compatible infrastructure has built-in redundancy across buildings. So 3 different buildings on the campus, but all in one city. And yeah, when it comes to these other questions, what general recommendations for choosing the technology stack of your node, I think it's again boils down to the question, what do you want? What interaction model do you have in mind with EGA? What can you do legally? Can you use public cloud providers like AWS that will simplify things, I guess, a lot? Or can you build upon existing infrastructure like the Nordic nodes? And the expectation beyond FEGA. Do you want to interact with other initiatives internationally or also nationally, and need to take that into account? And of course also how much stuff you have. So that is limiting also your abilities, I think. And yeah, I think generally I guess it's better to start small if you can. Then that's my perspective. Sorry if it was a bit longer.
That's okay. Stephen from Canada has maybe a question, because you guys are quite federated too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the question you asked was a question that we submitted, and what we were really looking for was a kind of much more technical understanding of how the implementation is done. I mean, we have a lot of experience here in storing data. We have about 20 petabytes that we store, which is all kind of different technical storage tiers. And, the EGA is an interesting use case as we build it up. I mean, our expectation is that again, it would be multi-petabytes of data per year being added. And so, what we were trying to understand, not people to say we use the cloud, is what are the speed disks that you use? What kind of RAID do you use? Are there particularly even manufacturers that are more specialized in this kind of storage? Because this is pretty cold storage, right? I mean, some of these files will be put into the archive and may never be requested. So how is that being solved from a technical level, a cost-effective level? Very interested in, like, with the 2 copies, what are the technical differences between the storage in the first copy to the second copy? I mean, I guess at some level, maybe the second copy is tape. I don't know. It'd be great to understand how the 5 nodes have actually stored the data, because certainly, you can have very low latency, highly rated disk that people use, often for many general purposes in the cloud. That certainly probably wouldn't be appropriate to have fast disk for this kind of, for at least the archival part of the EGA. So I'd just be trying to understand a more technical level of how people have, like, what disks have you bought, how many disks, how many trays, all those kind of really nitty-gritty type things.
Okay, thanks for clarifying, because I think it's good for the discussion. So go ahead. I'll say Finland because you're both there. I'm not sure.
That's only fair because we made it so difficult for you.
No, it's not difficult.
Yeah, so I get the point what you're trying to clarify. I think that's one of the things that we were also thinking before we started building our FEGA node here. So I think Jaakko of us is much more technical and much more deeper in the security. So I'll just paint the picture, and then I'll let Jaakko answer some of your questions. But we are in Finland. We are one of those that benefit from being small, right? So in small country, you tend to generalize and at the same time focus on one organization doing something for the others. So this is what happens in Finland. We both work in a company owned by the state and the higher education. So we are an enterprise, not a university. That's one thing. And we've been here for 50 years already. And we were formed originally to have the first supercomputer to answer why disks that are good for storing large amount of data that are just not used are different to those that you actually use for computing is true. But for 50 years we've been trying to support the Finnish education and research by scaling the university in multiple different ways. And Federated EGA is one of those ways now to do that. What we've done, it sounds very much actually what our German colleague just told. So we have everything built in-house. We don't use public clouds. We don't buy any public storage from anywhere. It's all in-house at CSC. We have infrastructure that is scalable for research that all our universities use. So we're talking about petascale storage systems, different cloud systems that are OpenStack based, Kubernetes clusters, supercomputers, and that's all for every single discipline of research. So this is used by the Finnish chemistry, mathematics, physics, life sciences, as well as now those researchers that are doing genomic research, where we have to provide an added level of security to store that data and make it available for compute. So we have different services that are for the life cycle of the project and the data when it's been generated, right, where the research actually happens. And now we're bringing Federated EGA to make sure that the reuse of that data is possible. And for that, we were preparing this, that we didn't think that we would talk too much about how the data has actually been used for compute during the research. But the Federated EGA really is the reuse engine, making sure that the data is described in a way that it's the others that come after the primary research project can use it. And it's also compatible with the global standards that you can combine data sets from other resources as well, such as the Central EGA or the dbGaP in US, or perhaps some other nodes in Europe that run the Federated EGA. So that's our idea. And so to come back to the original questions before I let Jaakko describe more detail, we do have S3, big one, which we are planning to use as where we keep the copy of the submitted data for the purpose of being able to authorize it. Once it's been authorized, it's moved closer to the compute to much more hotter disks. But the S3 interface is a generic interface for us to keep the copy of what we call the usable copy of the data for Federated EGA. Once it's been submitted, it's also we make 2 copies of it in a tape. What happens is that when the data comes into Finland, the tape things are run here next door to Helsinki, right? But the computable copy of the data is kept in our data center in Kajaani, which is about 600 kilometers north from Helsinki. So that's how the geographic copies are in 2 different places all the time. If something happens to the copy of which is close to the compute, then we can always take another copy of the submitted data from the tapes. Otherwise, they are really stored in a vault and not being touched. What general advice could we give? I think we would probably sign everything that has already been said here. Build on the competence that you already have in a country. That's probably the most important thing too. Is taking new technology and starting experimenting with that is not a good idea. Architecture, I think we should make architecture more public from the different nodes. how we have built this and how we compare that to across the nodes that would give you different usable use cases, because we all are building on our competencies. And although I say that we are very similar to what is happening in Germany, there are significant differences, I'm sure, if we would really do the analysis on that. Security and data protection are things that are probably asked later in more detail, but maybe Jaakko wants to touch upon that as well, because it's not trivial how you do that.
Yeah, I think that's the following question.
Yeah.
It's about security and data protection requirements. Yeah.
But to answer your more technical focused question, as Ilkka explained, there are two things for us in Federated EGA. One is to get the data in and get stored, and probably there's plenty of that. So it makes sense to utilize as cheap as possible a storage solution. So for that part, we utilize Ceph system. Well, it's an what is it? Object storage system, which has petabyte scale of data capability. So that's where we store the sort of standby copy of the data. But that's not suitable for actual computing. So for that, we have a data authorization mechanism, which is fully automatic. So when you are granted an access to the dataset, it will be streamed from that object storage closer to your compute, and you can make a local copy of that in your secure processing environment, which is only for you, detached from internet and everything. We can touch that later. And that's a OpenStack cloud-based virtual compute environment. And if that's not fast enough for you, then there's a possibility for you to actually have a really fast but expensive storage on a Lustre distributed file system, which is attached to the supercomputers, which you can then use for that. But it all boils back to how much you want to put money in just storing the data compared to how much you need to invest money in having a really fast access to it. So we have everything in our line from very slow tapes, object storage, sort of regular file system, and then really fast SSD-based distributed file systems.
And I should kind of say that we differ in between the nodes that are here and the central EGA as well, based on what kind of system we run for the analysis. So in our use case, we don't let the data to be downloaded to a university system to be analyzed. It stays within the company all the time. So the copy of the archive is here, and as well as all the different systems where the licensed end user should be analyzing the data.
One benefit we have is that we are also actually our university's internet provider. So we are actually the biggest internet provider in our country, and we have the fastest network. So that helps also.
Yeah.
Can I just squeeze in, because we're starting to get to some of the technical answers here. So one thing, for instance, so Finland, you said that your second copy is on tape. Do all the other nodes that I think there's 5 nodes that are now operational, what are their second copy? Do they also use tape as the second copy, or do they use disk, and what kind of disk, if they do?
Okay, who wants to go first? Shall, you have your hand up from the beginning? That's old. Okay, then Marcus, you were next, I think.
Yeah, I can't say very much about the technical details for the Swedish nodes. I guess there are people at our node that might know this better. But at least we are using an S3 solution. And we are building on services that we have a storage provider that provides data storage for all Swedish universities, and we are using their solution. They have an S3 solution, and so I don't think we have to bother too much about how the data is actually being stored. We just need to buy more storage if we need that. When it comes to geographical separation, I know that the data is kept in at two separate sites in Stockholm, at least. And general recommendation, I think we have touched upon most of the things that I was thinking of. Maybe also think about the skills in your organization when you plan for the technical development. I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Kirsten, you want to?
Yeah, maybe just immediately replying to the question about tape backup. So we have that on our agenda. We don't do it yet, but we have a setup in-house in the German Cancer Research Center that is hosting the Heidelberg node of GHG to do that. And again, our primary storage is S3 compatible S3 compatible solution that was bought from IBM. It's called IBM Cos. Cannot tell you much about the details of which disks are used there, but it's definitely not high performance or high speed, depending or like from our experience with it. It's okay, but it's definitely not for compute similar as the Finnish colleague said. Yeah, and again about this replication, currently our S3 is replicated 3 times, and we want to come to a situation where it's also replicated not only on campus but so not only across buildings but also across cities, but we are not there yet.
Okay, thank you. It's good we're discussing a lot, but just to point, we're still in the first question, and technically the break is in 4 minutes. We didn't hear from Spain at all on this one. I don't know if you want to add something.
No, from our side, we tried the keep it simple approach. So first of all, we do it on a disk storage and on home infrastructure, but we are moving to the Spanish supercomputing network. So we will use the resources of this network. This composed for 14 nodes and is distributed all across the Spanish territory. So we will have 2 copies, one here in Barcelona and another one in Canary Island. So we will use cloud storage and 2 points of backups.
Okay, perfect. And then I don't know if Fred, maybe you want to add anything about storage backups from the central EGA point of view, or if you no, okay. Because then maybe we can move on. It would be maybe we can try and tackle the security and data protection question before the break, or that I think if from the ones that are left, I think it's probably the best in these technical focus. And then what maybe we can try and have the panelists answer things offline as well. Like Shell, you've been answering things in the chat right now, and we can compile these responses too for any questions that we don't manage to get to during this time. Finland, please. Yeah.
All right, the security and privacy thing.
Okay, good.
Well, this could be answered in so many ways, and the technical explanation would take a day. So probably trying to be brief here. So the first thing is encryption, of course. So all data coming in is encrypted at user's end. We provide tools for that. So and everything stored stays in rest is also encrypted. To the extent that we don't provide that data basically ever back to the user. So whenever they have granted access to the data, I mentioned earlier that it's fully automatic. We have a solution for that, which is based on global standards. We will stream that data back to the user in a way that it will be decrypted on the fly. So the users will receive sort of any streaming service type of stream of unencrypted data into their secure processing environment. They are free to do whatever with the data they want inside their own box. There's no way they can take any data out except taking, of course, screen captures of their remote desktop. You can't prevent that. And your analysis results, of course, that's something the researchers want to have back. So there's a mechanism for them to bring those out, but they must be authorized by the principal investigator. And also that data is encrypted in transfer. Then how do we implement this is a very multiple layer of infrastructure. So we utilize for our compute environment our own secure computing cloud, which is called ePOTA infrastructure. So all the users' secure processing environments are there. They are logically separated from each other, so that basically even if you work, one researcher works in two separate projects, those two separate projects are not able to see each other and are not able to share any data between them. The whole ePOTA is isolated from internet, so there's no connection to that. We also sell the same or provide the same service for universities in a manner that if you want to access the service, you will need to bring in your own network with MPLS or dedicated fiber or something like that. So we actually are our own customer for that cloud tenant. And we have built a quite, I would say, complex mechanism in front of that so that we can provide a virtual machine remote desktop windows into the ePOTA system. So there are multiple levels of network separation, firewalls, access control lists, data diodes so that data can only flow in one direction, and so on and so on. And on organizational level, there's a separation of duties. So no one person have hand of all the controls there. So for example, if you want to do network routing, we need to go to ask another department to do that in CSC. So our admins can't do that. And the encryption keys used to encrypt the data are not hosted by the administrators of the service. So the admins who actually have access to the service platform, they have no way of decrypting the data. It's the encryption keys and that are on a separate level and separate persons in separate departments in CSC. All loggings are again sent to another system which is completely out of our hands. It's in a CSC security. So if we want to have access to logs, we need to go to the security department and ask that we need logs from that time period, and they will verify with us the logs. So we pretty much have a track of every single modification or change management system in place for the whole service. So it's rather complex, and we have been audited by the Finnish authority based on a security secondary use of healthcare data, and we passed that audit. So I guess on a paper level, at least, we are very sure secure. I'm confident as a service owner that our system meets the need.
Great. Does anyone else want to? Yeah, Kirsten?
Yeah, I think a lot of things have already been mentioned that I think are very, very important, and I can second all of them. I mean, one mindset that we are trying to culture in our team is also the mindset of zero trust infrastructure. So no service no services are trusting each other. There are no like safe zones that are created by a network or anything in which data can flow in like uncontrolled, unauthorized way. And I think that goes also into the same direction how Jaco described it, right? So we're away from this perimeter security towards this like thinking in individual services and their like their own sandbox, so to say. And that also means, and that's same thing pretty much that Jaco said, is you shouldn't like put like or you have to distribute sensitive data as much as possible across these services. So encryption keys, I mean, it should never be possible to just by hacking a single component of the system to get access to both the encryption keys and the encrypted files, the encrypted data that has to be prevented at all cost. Yeah, and again, like this, there shouldn't be single individuals that have too much permissions centered on them. But that's of course a journey. We are also not fully there. It obviously depends on the amount of employees, the number of employees you have at your disposal. Of course, yeah, defining clear SOPs is, I think, very important, where you cannot enforce security via technical boundaries. And while we are not searching for certification yet, we do align and implement the recommendation from our German Institute for Security and Information Technology, that's the BSI. They publish recommendations that are also available in English language. I can post that here in the chat. So we are trying to follow that, and later, once we are moving more into or acting more as a service provider, hopefully for the medical space, for the standard care space, then we of course also need to look into getting certified for all of that. And yeah, again, on the technical levels, I think most of that was already mentioned, like encryption. The Crypt4GH standard is really, really good for that. So that's from the GF4GH. And two-factor authentication, encrypted inter-service communication, and yeah, keeping your supply chain safe and your CI/CD system safe. That can involve things like container scanning, artifact signing. Yeah, these are the kind of technical measures we're currently thinking of.
Perfect, thank you. Roger, do you want to add something before the break?
Yes, I just would like to add that in our project we have additional task that is pen testing, and we will hire the external company. So they perform some tests if they will be able to get out the data of our infrastructure, and if they manage success, they probably show us the way how they do this, and we will get some recommendation of how to fix our infrastructure. So it also could be an element of making the security. Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Does somebody want to add something else from the other nodes, or is that a hand raised, Jakob? Yeah.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, just crossed my mind hearing others saying three more things maybe. Our design principle for the system was that we trust the user who works on the data, but do not trust anything else. So we have built the system in a way that the user can do whatever they want in the environment. We make sure that they can't shoot themselves in the foot, and they can shoot others in the environment, and no one else can shoot them. So that's sort of a confined environment. That's the guiding design principle for us. This also leads to thing, for example, in encryption, that we are not dependent on one encryption key pair. So when data comes in to Federated EGA node, it's encrypted with one key, but then we do sort of, I would say, a clever trick that we split the encrypted files in two parts. We take the encryption header and store that in a database out from the reach of the files. And the actual data is then on the storage system. And whenever you want to access the data, you will of course need the encryption header of the file. So we'll bring that back from the database and we'll switch it so that each and every data usage uses different encryption. So even if the data user leaks the encryption key, if they get somehow hold of it, it still doesn't jeopardize the whole system, because that's only for the data they have been granted access to. So even if it would happen in a worst case scenario that somehow some user would leak the encryption key they have at their reach, it doesn't affect anything else but the data they have granted access to. Which leads to the user management thing, which is something we don't do ourselves. We trust the federated authentication system of Finnish HAKA, University Authentication, or Life Science AI, or things like these. So again, layers and levels of separation of security.
Okay, perfect. Anything to add from the other nodes? Yeah, go ahead, Shah.
Yeah, just shortly supporting whatever has been said already, that different levels of different zones of security is what we had to kind of design into our architecture. So as Jaakko just mentioned, a completely separate environment that where we can have the data archive and everything stored at rest, but we also need to have a part of the architecture that is actually interfacing with the world to allow upload of data and download of data and the right of authentication, etc. So that is kind of a middle level. That it's an untrusted zone, but it has to be exposed to the internet. But no data is really stored there. It's just passing through there in an encrypted form. And getting these 2-3 kind of different zones to talk to each other in a secure enough way has been one of the major challenges, and the way we had to design the system with proper security and data protection requirements from the start. Yeah, that's it for me. Excellent,
thank you. Because that's one of the questions we didn't get to, is what are some of the major challenges that you face? So that's one of them for sure. I think, unless there's any final comment, we might, since we're over time, we could take the break now, if that's okay. So we didn't get to all the technical questions. We can see how it goes in the next session after the break. But if it's fine for everyone, I would suggest we go to the operational questions. And they look like they might go a little bit faster. I'm not sure. And then yeah, we just see how that goes. So since we're already over time, is it fine for everyone if we make it a 7-minute comfort break? And so then that would mean we come back at 3:05, or no, yeah, 3:05. Yeah, okay, perfect. I will write that here. We come back at 3:05. Of course, I'm talking about my time here. All right. Thank you again, everyone. We'll see you shortly. Looks like we're coming back now slowly. Just wait another few seconds. Okay, it's 3:06 now, so maybe we can get started. So let's move to the more operational questions, and then maybe there'll be time after we can go back to anything that was missed or general questions. Let's see how it goes time-wise. So in the next part, we had 5 questions, but they seem a bit more general. So yeah, I mean, maybe we can answer these a little bit quicker, going kind of node by node. So just the first one, I don't like the sharing screen. Sorry, I have trouble with the Zoom controls here for some reason. Okay, so the first question was, what kind of user support system have you implemented to operate your Federated EGA node? It's really quite general. Maybe can I pick on anyone to answer first? How about Shell? Because you're first there, and I know you guys are maybe advanced.
I don't think we are advanced, but in the same way as Sweden, we have this national bioinformatics kind of network that already provides more generic bioinformatics support. And we have made a special queue for FEGA in our support system. We have a couple of people that has been especially trained to be part of the team and working on doing uploads and doing getting to know the whole setup. So we only have 2 people that is kind of a little bit skilled in this. That count actually includes me, and we will be scaling up with more people from the generic help desk to be trained on this once we have more submissions coming in. But currently we only have 2 people that is knowledgeable enough about all the ins and outs of our solution to be giving that type of user support.
Perfect. Yeah, I think these answers are also touching on some of the other questions that are in the same section, so that's good. Go ahead, Marcus.
Yes, as Shell said, our situation is very similar. We have a national bioinformatics infrastructure, Sweden, which is where we have some support around data management. And we have now 3 data stewards that are part of the help desk team for the Federated EGA node. And we are using the already existing ticketing system. It's the system called Redmine that some of you may be aware of. I was also thinking of another tool that we are using for the support, and that is for maintaining our website. We are using a tool called Quarto to create and maintain the website. So it's a static website made from Markdown files.
Okay, great, thank you. Kirsten, go ahead.
Yeah, so not too much to add, but so again, like we are just getting started. We're not in production yet, but what our plans are is to have 1 data steward at every federal node within Germany, and they will be available through a help desk. And we're using a help desk software called Samad. Also paste that in to the chat that is apparently GDPR compliant, but I cannot tell you the details about in which regard it is compliant. And maybe, yeah, we have also an outreach team that is going to workshops, going to conferences to educate or raise awareness for our project in the community, but also promote genomics research in the broader population in Germany.
Great, thank you. Albert, go ahead, please.
Yes, from Spain Node, we are as the other ones. We are using Helpdesk. We have no production datasets yet, but we are playing with ticketing tool is RT, as Norway said, chat. So we are implementing this tool for other projects, and we have this tool reading just to use for the Helpdesk people.
Great, thank you. Finland.
Yeah, no brainer for us also. Utilize existing one, which is RT, request tracker. We have 2 persons at the moment, and well, 2 dedicated persons and more in a line who know what to answer in the basic questions. We also do some Zoom meetings with certain customers and do training and this kind of stuff. So yeah, basic operations support for existing customers and new ones also. Yeah.
Okay. Blažej, do you want to add anything for Poland? From Poland?
Yes, in Poland, we also plan to use the existing software that currently we have to support general help desk issue. So, and regarding the personnel, we plan to have about 3 people and the 2 FTE, let's say, so there won't be some part of part-time personnel, but we would like to have more people so we have better spread knowledge in case of some personnel rotation.
Great, thank you. And I don't know if anyone from Central EGA might want to add anything about user support.
Well, I can add some information, but basically we are pretty aligned with most of the federated nodes. We also use RT for our for supporting our users, and also as far as I know, we would also be using that for communicating with other help desk nodes so far.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So that was already kind of touching on the next question of staffing requirements for operating a production federated EGA node. So maybe that's a bit beyond just help desk staff. Kjell, do you want to start?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that the help desk personnel that we've trained so far is more on supporting a user once the legal papers are in place. And it's still the bottleneck for us now is to, when we have new submitters, is to actually put the submitters in contact with their own kind of functions inside their own organization, so that the people talk to us and we need to tell them that you guys need to put us in contact with your data protection officer and your security officer, because we need to provide information to them. And that's a bit hard to kind of outsource or train the regular help desk to do that type of work. You need to know a bit more about
We lost Kjell.
He's freeze.
He's frozen, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully he comes back shortly, but there you are. We lost you for a moment. Yeah, you were frozen.
Okay.
At the
In
very
summary, working with the DPOs and the security officers at institutions is our main load now, not really the end users wanting to upload the data.
Okay. Kirsten, go ahead.
I was waiting for Shell to maybe first answer the question about the staffing, the general staffing, but I can also go ahead first. So I think that question is obviously very difficult to answer because, again, for the same reasons I already mentioned many times, it depends really on your ambitions and the requirements you have at hand, what you want to set up, with which other networks or initiatives you want to interact. And then I assume it can be very little if you have all of that already in place, mostly like the help desk maybe, to really operate. But in our case, it's much more than that. So currently we are employing 42 people across 20 institutions. And yeah, a lot of that is because we don't have a lot of existing infrastructure. We have this problem of federation, not as, for instance, our colleagues in Sweden who can nicely do things in a central place, in a central setup. And yeah, that's pretty much our story. But it doesn't translate, of course, into your requirements. That's the whole point. Can be your requirement will mostly be very different.
Does anyone else want to add to this? Okay, Marcus, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess this is something that we need to come back to because we cannot say we are not fully operational yet, and that is because we are missing some legal agreement, so we cannot upload any data for the moment. This is something that it's very hard to plan because you rely on other people in other organizations and sometimes even in your own organization. And this takes a lot of time for us in the help desk right now to figure out how we should do this. But we have some things in place, but there are still pieces missing. Yeah.
Did you say something, Amy?
Yeah. You don't hear me? You hear me now?
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was saying Finland. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's thank you. So I think this question has been the first question that's ever asked. How many people do you need to budget in to run the federated EGA service? And we don't really have an answer for it because it depends from the background where you start from. So the operations here probably mean only help desk and some of the management that comes on leading the federated EGA, and then obvious things like making the legal agreements, the marketing, all kind of outreach activities that you have. So that can be provided from the central supporting functions of the organization that runs this part of the operations. But the other part is to develop further the service. So the technical people, and we have many in this call. There's also the idea that once you develop something, you move it into really production service. So you have different teams usually maintaining those. So the number of people involved in this typically runs in 20 to 30 if you start counting every single person in an organization that is one way or the other supporting the service, all the way down to the infrastructure platforms that are required where we started from storage systems. So where you start is the question, and that I think for those who are nodes that are thinking coming and starting the operational system, that's part of the discussion that you need to have internally, what part of is missing. I think that's also the two previous speakers were saying exactly the same thing, that we still don't have parts of the puzzle in place for many reasons. Neither are we really operational either, so it's not, doesn't matter. But once we are, maybe the bulk sum that we kind of, maybe whether it's true or not, it's about 4 or 5 people just at the top that you need to budget in to be able to run the service. Then it depends on the kind of service functions internally that you get from your own organization or from those where you partner with. I would also say that the central EGA runs committees that we all work together. That also involves a number of people so that you can separate the roles in the node in a clear fashion. So cannot be one, right? It has to be more. 5 is already a quite big bill that you have to budget in. So somewhere there. Do you want to say anything? Or
yeah, that would be our answer. So if I look directly in our budget, it would be 4 or 5. But since we are building on existing CSC infrastructure, I tried to make a quick calculation in my head, and I would come up with the number of something like 60 people are involved. From networks to cloud support for everything development there, stuff like that. So it comes from a very small streams, but to operate, to run the service, I don't know.
multiple.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Shell, go ahead.
Yeah, I was having the exact same thoughts, Ilkka, that you cannot kind of have the development out of this. You cannot operate a FEGA node with actually having a development team continuously working on improving this. And I've separated out, like TSD is being operated by non-FEGA staff, but we definitely rely on their work. But just to have sufficient competence to kind of do the establishment work, you would need to have 5 different persons with different backgrounds just to get ahead of talking to all the different people you need to talk to. So currently we would be like 5 people that is talking to everyone else around us with different competences. We don't only do this. We have 3 to 4 developers in addition. We will have the help desk in addition to that. So even with Norway, that maybe is a rather small node, we would have like the 10 to 15 people involved in this within Elixir Norway. And then you have all the support staff, such as TSD operating the infrastructure below us in addition. But so, of course, you need to get the funding for these people. You don't need to fund 15 people full time. You need to maybe fund 5 to 7 people full time, but these 5 to 7 FTEs needs to be distributed on maybe 10, 15 people to start operating a small scale node. And then depending on the traffic you have, how many parallel submissions would you need to support once we get some traction, then these numbers will change again.
Anyone else want to add to this? Albert, maybe, or Blaži?
It's a tricky question, just because it all depends from where you start, and what's your data management, how many amount of data you manage. So it's difficult to say. From Spain node, we use 3 technical people, and we have 1 help desk, and that's for all. That's all for now. Just because we have no production data set yet. That perhaps when we start to receive different submission, perhaps we need to scale for more people.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anyone else want to add to this? Okay. Then maybe, so the next question, operational focus, is what kind of ongoing software support will nodes receive from developers? Does that mean from which developers? From the central EGA, I guess, or or does anybody want to answer that? But I was wondering this, if it's referring to development support from in which direction? Because I guess we're hearing already that obviously it's going to be always evolving and you'll need ongoing support in different aspects for sure.
Given the context we are in, that there's new nodes that wants to join, maybe they are thinking about how would a new node actually get, what's the opportunity of a new node to get some support to start develop their own thing. Maybe that's how I was starting to think about this, but as I just said, you cannot operate a node purely depending on someone else developing the solution for you. You need to have the developers in-house to know the full system and also implement your end of things. So
yeah, Fred, do you want to say something? Because obviously like Fred, you provide a lot of development support to help the nodes.
No, Shelley's right, but it depends on your level of ambition. If you depend on somebody else to provide the service, you cannot make the changes you want, or you wait a week or two until they do it. If you have the developer in-house, you can make the changes immediately. And also when you need to hire a number of people to do the initial setup, but after that, you should be able to scale down and have operation only if you don't make any changes. But right now we are in the phase of setting it up, making changes, adapting, introducing new features, removing old ones. So that's why we need somebody around. But when the ship is floating and leaving, then normally it's just operation. I mean, this is why we use machines. We don't need people to do it. Machines will do it.
Okay. Anyone want to add anything further about that? Okay. Then,
maybe
yeah,
just
go ahead,
one more thing because of the questions that we're coming to. So if you still a node that is wondering how did we do it and would we make it easier for, yes, so of course we do aim to make it easier for the next wave of nodes. We each one of us have a lot of documentation, so the technical documentation that is provided either from the central EGA or from the nodes is documented. It's typically licensed in a way that it's open source, and we're kind people, so we answer when you ask questions. Sometimes I think maybe we should think about ways that some of the nodes support more on some of the upcoming nodes, be a card parents basically, and take a bit more responsibility of looking after nodes so that it becomes more personal and you can raise faster than what we did. But in truth, technical things are easily solvable, believe it or not, though, well, at least compared to how the legal things work. So, you know, we getting to that part where we talk about what are the templates and what are the real challenges. So I think that there is a lot of documentation and we learn to make better documentation of different types, technical or architectural or operational documentation that helps the next wave to come on board. Yeah, but let's move on for the next questions.
Oh, let's move on.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
sorry.
go ahead, Fred. Yeah, if you want to add
No,
something.
maybe Amy, you want to mention the little exchange we do with Portugal, because this is an example. We might reuse the knowledge we do with Portugal. So with Portugal, we, how can I phrase it? We will do an exchange so that somebody from Central EGA will go to Portugal and help them do the setup. Now, of course, we have a bit of ping pong in advance online instead of just going there and wasting time. But we have a bit of ping pong before, so that we tell them prepare this, prepare this, prepare that, because each country has their own setup, and we can help them connect that to Central EGA, but we can also help them with their own setup, and they need to get involved in their own setup. We cannot say from Central EGA, or even from this group here, we cannot say this is the good way, this is the good way, and then each country will say it doesn't work for me because I have a different things. So we actually, with Portugal, we're going there. We're going to do the setup with them, film, record, take some knowledge, and write documentation and so on. And then we can apply that. And there is money in Elixir to do that with other countries. So travel to the other country. Now, of course, you can imagine this is a bit of a waste to go to each country and do the same thing, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to find out the differences and help them with the differences. If it's the same thing, we're not idiots. We're going to write one documentation and share it with everybody. But each country has one part which is common, one part which is specific. And this is, to go like Ilka was saying, this is only the technical side, and that's the easy one. We can find solutions for the technical part. The non-technical lawyers and stuff like this, it's the complicated one. Every time you involve people and people's opinion, that's the difficult part. I wanted to leave that to you, Amy, if you wanted to mention something about the exchange.
Yes, we are. That's the plan to do exactly that kind of learning what we've gained from what we've learned, helping now that the next wave can go smoother. And so obviously it's not so, we can't like go to every country in the world and send our developers everywhere, but this is definitely the idea. Yeah, well, okay. But yeah, that's exactly the idea with this kind of event we're having now, and plans moving forward. Okay,
Alexandros had the question in the chat.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to say it, Alexandros, or should I read it?
Yeah, sure. Of course. Hello, everyone. My question was that from what I've seen so far is that currently there are two main implementations, the Spanish one and the Nordic one, or the Nordic one and the Spanish one, which order you prefer. So when a new node wants to come on board, we choose one of the two implementations, but do we have to implement our own code, or at some point it will be mature enough, at least to start with a turnkey solution? And on top of that, is there any Slack channel where we can see common mistakes, or we can discuss technical things, or even see other discussions, like Slack works?
Well,
that's my question.
Yeah, to the second question, I know it's something that was discussed, I think, at the last operational committee, and somebody was going to investigate starting exactly that, a Slack channel. So it doesn't exist yet. To the first part of your question, I think someone else should answer. And Johan, I'm not sure now if this was related. You wanted to add to this perspective from the chat, or from the previous?
Okay, yes, perfect. Yes, I thought I could answer, or try to answer a little bit about the Nordic code base, right? So I'm a little bit afraid of saying turnkey, and I think everyone is that, because there will always be like local adaptations, right? But hopefully my goal is, or our goal is, to make sure that our implementation supports most of the common use cases, right? So this has been one of the advantages when we develop it in Nordics, because Sweden, Finland, and Norway, which are the main implementers right now, but also Estonia is coming up now, and Denmark as well. We have some differences between us, so we do cover some of the differences, and to have a turnkey you can start working on to figure things out. I think we really want to have that. So we're going to the biohackathon now in 2 weeks in Elixir to actually try to create some sort of welcoming onboarding suite, so you can get things up and running and see what is happening and how everything is interacting, right? So that would be a test turnkey, I guess, but then everyone has their own storage provider with some special needs or something like that. Right? So I hope that answers most of it from the Nordics.
Okay, yeah, Albert, go ahead.
Okay, yes. To explain, the Spanish implementation is not a main implementation, as Fred said. Every node has his own implementation, so it's not one implementation or two main implementations. So it all depends on how do you need to implement, or it's all about your necessities and the way you want to do it. So we have different examples, and perhaps we can help. But for example, the Spanish implementation is based basically in the central EGA, local EGA software stack that is in GitHub, and it's not our solution. We have this part as a part of our solution, and the last part, the delivery part of the process, is our solution, but it's not the main one.
Okay, thank you. Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought in addition to what we heard before from Fred, that there's possibility to get help through central EGA. I mean, of course, there's this central EGA homepage as well with a lot of information. In the coming project to GDI, there will be funding to help new nodes as well. So we don't have that funding now, but there will be quite soon.
That's a good point. And we have to think about
And there is a kit.
Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
There is a kit to start. The common repo for local EGA is a little implementation to see how it's going on, how it's, you know, how it talks. It includes a fake central EGA to see something, and from that knowledge, you can actually apply it to your real system and say, like, I don't like this component. This is too basic. I have another one already, and then you swap it. It's designed for that way, so that, like Johan was saying, cover many cases. You actually compartmentalized everything, you make it modular, and then you can swap modules. And there are lots of efforts on that front, and also different if you prefer one particular language rather than another one, you can also do that. So there is already a lot of things. You just need to dig into the documentation and get your head in it. And this is what Shell was saying, like, you need somebody that puts its head in it to do it. There is no one-liner that you say, type install local EGA, thank you very much, I go get my coffee and I come back. That doesn't work that way. You have too many, it's how do you say, pulpo? You have many tentacles. It goes into different areas: storage, network, security, cryptography. So the local EGA repo tries to do that. It will even be updated a bit with a, I don't know, let's try to make it even easier to install, but this is just a toy to make people look at it. The real implementation needs to scale. It needs to handle, you know, lots of data. It cannot be on local storage like my laptop. I can try the FEGA on my laptop, but my laptop is small. So that's what I want to mention. There are lots of repos, and we're not in a competition for who is the best one. We're in a competition to who can help the other one best. That would be better.
Nicely said. No competition, all friends.
Competition is not, you improve. And
any other comments related to this? Oh, I see your heart, Johan. That's nice. Okay, good. Then this is going nicely now. So then the next question here is about templates. Are there templates available for things like data access agreements, terms of use, data processing agreements, data access requests? Could Federated EGA nodes facilitate this? Or I don't know, or central EGA. Shall, go ahead.
Yeah, and there is a working group that has been spinned out. I can't remember if it was from the strategic or operational committee that did collect some of this for the initial nodes that were having templates that could be shared. What's important to know here is that we are talking about templates here, but you have two levels of it. We are having a data processing agreement template that Elixir Norway serves for any or provides to any submitter that would like to consider submitting data to FEGA Norway. And then we will need to iterate with that submitter how will the actual data processing agreement between FEGA Norway hosting organization and the submitter organization look like, because that's where the data protection officers of the two sides and will come in and change things. But so what we are really asking for here, are there any templates for these templates? Because how the data processing agreement for the FEGA Norway will have to include specific parts that is actually reflecting the implementation of the FEGA Norway node. The data processing agreement is really specifying how are you allowed to process the data on behalf of the data controller. And then one concerning question here is, if we really would like to have geo-replication of our data, that needs to be stated in there, and which sub-processors are we using. So these templates cannot be done once by one FEGA node and then be reused by others, right? You need to adopt it to your actual implementation before you provide it to your users. But there has been collected both access agreements, terms of use, and data processing agreements by this working group already.
Yes, thank you, Shah. Yeah, I'll just mention, so Fred already posted the link in the chat, but it's also been, it's in the presentation as well that I shared in the chat earlier today, the onboarding website. So I was going to mention it at the end of today, but within there, you can already find a lot of these templates of templates, perhaps, and some other material. And this site is growing. So yeah, there's, if there's time at the end, I'll talk about it more, but the plan was to mention that towards the end. And then, great, Finland, please, go ahead. Okay, yeah, Paul.
So just to add to what Kjell was saying, the Commission, European Commission also has a website where you have templated sentences that you can add into your data processing agreement or other parts of the required documents that were already iterated over there. I think, if I understood right, this question, it's a typical one. I think every single one have had this idea that where are the templates of the templates that I can have a look. So have I covered all the things in the documents I'm writing to? I think we looked at the computer room in Denmark. We looked at some of the Swedish ones. Data, and that's just for the GDPR related things. We looked into the central EGA for the data access agreements that the current big data access committees for most important data sets have in place to understand, can we use those in Finland as a template for the national data controllers? And this it's an iterative question. Either you are a data controller, you need a different type of templates to understand how you would build up your own template, or you are part of running the service and you're thinking, what should I see around me, in a nice way that Kjell was presenting, that I need this and this and this, and they are all different to different stakeholders that I interact with. What I am happy about is that this becoming a node is now easier because we do have a template and we can give it out so that it very clearly gives you an understanding what are the responsibilities of the node towards the central EGA, and as well, that is part of the information you need to understand when you are making those contracts with your national stakeholders. They will ask that, what is the information that flies between the node and the central EGA? So I don't know. The hard part is, of course, that the legal advice is scarce, right? It is very difficult to get access to those, and I hope every one of those nodes is already DPO that they can talk to. That's important, more important than the templates of the templates.
Thanks. Thank you. Aina, please.
Yeah, so for Central EGA, we currently have on our webpage a couple of templates for data access agreements that we share with all our users. So if you want to take a look at them, they are openly available on our webpage. And the same for the data processing agreement. On our webpage, we have available the well, it's not the template, it's the data processing agreement that we use at EGA, which is non-negotiable. But of course, like you can take that just as a template. But then again, just like what Ilka said, like be aware that you must be in contact with your legal department, with your DPO. They will tell you your requirements for your institution. And then also for terms of use, we currently don't have any template for that, but we do provide information of the data use ontology, which is a GA4GH standard that is using some structured way of using like is structured terms for using your data, and which uses ontology and it's machine readable. So yeah, we are currently suggesting to use those, and yeah, everything is on our webpage. So I can share the links if you're interested.
Perfect, thank you. Marcus.
Yeah, so when it comes to data processing agreement, we have tried to simplify things for the submitters, so they don't have to contact the DPO all the time, every time they are going to submit data to us. We have a generic data processing agreement between the major Swedish universities and the host university of our local node. So that means that that should work for basically most of the submitters that comes to us. And we are also working on a template for data access agreement. But we want to have some legal experts looking at that before we have it as on our official template.
Okay, thank you. Shel, go ahead.
Yeah, we are also moving in that direction, that we try to talk to the institutions on behalf of the users, so that when the users actually want to submit the data, we have like a higher an anchoring of the data processing agreement higher up in the institution, including the DPO and security officer of that institution. But what we already, even though we have like the big agreement signed at a higher level, we will always need a more like small addendum to the data processing agreement for a specific data set, because we would like to keep track of what is the actual, how long is the approval, say the regional ethical committee approval for that data set, when does that expire? So we need to collect a little bit of information about the actual data set as well, as part of the data processing agreement per data set. Because if that legal approval is actually expiring at some time, they are often given with 5 or 10 years running time, then our processing agreement actually tells us that we need to remove that data set. We cannot actually host it in the archiving solution anymore, based on the way we now interpret GDPR. That may, of course, change in the future, but that's why we anyways land on, we need to have a data processing agreement directly to each data set, even though we have these higher level institution agreements and signatures in place.
Okay. If there are no more burning comments on this we only have 10 minutes left, and we had originally hoped to have 30 minutes for general questions. So I'd like to give a chance for all these people who have joined us today to ask any questions that might not have been submitted in advance. Or if not, we can revisit some that we didn't get a chance to, or we have some backup ones as well that were. So are there any questions from any of the participants here today? You can write in the chat if you want. Perhaps everything has been answered. Okay. Good, then I'm not feeling so guilty about running out of time. Then I'm wondering if, I think in the end we did sort of cover everything that we're, oh, Shell, sorry, I see your hand now. Go ahead.
I don't think we covered the last question. What are the biggest operation challenges?
No, I know. I was on purpose not going there just to make sure there were no questions in the audience. And now I was coming back to that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But okay, so there, you already asked. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had kind of three bullet points there. So one of the things, maybe a boring one, is to actually secure a stable, nationally anchored funding for the service, right? That you actually are able to keep this up and running for a sufficient time. Secondly, what we're facing now, after we've kind of done the technical work and what was described as easy here, is to actually get known in the field and in the landscape as to get a recognition and recommendation that this is the service you should use for sharing, right? People are still afraid of taking the GDPR responsibility and say, yes, we would like to do this. And then on the similar thing is that we now face the bottleneck of going and talking to everyone and training them on GDPR. For you to share your sensitive data, you actually need to be willing to sign a data processing agreement on behalf of your institution, or get that processing agreement anchored inside your own institution. And we simply have a challenge in scaling there with all people that really would like to come and submit data, but they are so afraid of taking the responsibility and signing things on their own, and they always need to turn around and look inside their own institution. Who can I blame? Who can I get this signed for me? But they actually need to take the responsibility themselves, which is a hard kind of grown-up training that we now face to do.
Thank you. Okay. Someone from one of the other nodes want to talk about the challenges? Kirsten, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the Norway node is also a bit more ahead in the journey of going to production. But what we are currently, what is our current challenge, most priority challenge is that we are actually required to interact with legal authorities, both in our institution, but also on state level. And the feedback loop is there very, very long and very unpredictable. That might be a Germany specific thing, but yeah, maybe not, I don't know. And we don't have a good solution for that, actually. It's, of course, a bit out of our control. But one thing that that already helped us quite a bit is, of course, getting this interaction started as early as possible, but also getting this interaction started with a real product. And that, of course, cannot be when you get this interaction started early. That cannot be the full product that you are envisioning for your FEGA node. But what we did is, for instance, we started that discussion with a service that we are operating that's called COGDA. That is our national COVID-19 data portal. And that was already a huge challenge, but there are many lessons that we learned from that. And now we are trying to also come into production in tiers. not with full functionality first, but maybe only listing metadata first, and then expanding across that, adding the functionality of granting access to others via controlled access mechanism. But yeah, I'm just like getting this discussion started as early as possible might be a good advice.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Another node? Marcus? Yeah.
Yeah, our biggest challenge right now is to data processing agreement with our storage provider, because that need to comply with the general data processing agreements that we have already with the universities. They want us to use their template, but our host university want us to use another. So issues like that, there are also more issues. So these are things that we absolutely need to solve in order to go operational. Another thing is that another operational challenge is now when we are more and more researchers are contacting us. They want to submit data, but we cannot provide that service for the moment. And how are we dealing with those submitters? We have to inform them about other ways they can do. They can, for example, register a metadata record, just describing the data while they are waiting. But these are also things that we need to take care of. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Operational challenges? Greatest operational challenges. Okay. Then there's only 3 minutes left. I think we did very well covering, we did essentially cover all the questions that were submitted. I can give a last chance for any questions from the audience. No, I don't see, I don't see the Zoom controls for some reason when I'm sharing. Well, so as you know, this is being recorded. We've been taking a live transcription, and soon we'll be sharing it publicly. And then there's also the link here to the onboarding website that Fred already shared the link in the chat. And here you will find a lot of valuable resources, links to some node specific things, general things. So this has been a site that's been built by the nodes for new nodes. And so it was quite a lot of work putting it together. The plan is to keep it growing. So I encourage everyone who's really wanting to join Federated EGA to have a look there. And I just want to take a moment to show the acknowledgement slide. But I'm going to stop sharing because I can't I can't control it for some reason. Maybe I need 2 screens. Okay. So I want to, of course, thank again very much all the panelists for coming today and taking all this time to answer questions and review them in advance and take your time here. So thanks again very much. And thanks to all the participants who submitted questions and came here today at all different hours and times in the world. So if there's nothing else.
Yeah, maybe one little thing. So if you like to reread our question from the German note, we have them also in bullet points in a Google Doc. I don't know is that okay if I share that link, or
that would be absolutely okay. Yep.
Okay, sure. So here it is.
Okay.
So
Yes,
just
we'll
there.
We'll get the transcription of the chat conversation as well and try and incorporate that when we do the overall transcription of this webinar today. So, because I think there's been a lot of useful things shared, links. Maybe we can, and the plan would be all of this to eventually get incorporated into that onboarding website that I already mentioned. Okay. Then if there's nothing else, look, it's exactly 4 o'clock. We've finished perfectly on time. So congratulations for that as well. And thank you all again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye.